One of the best ways to eat vegetables is with pasta. Take broccoli, for example. On its own, it's pretty good. But when you pair it with orecchiette pasta, for example, you take it to another level. Welcome to Actually Italian. I'm Sal, and I'm on a mission to help you cook authentic regional Italian cuisine. Today we're going to cook this broccoli with orecchiette, which is a pasta that's very popular from Puglia. At this point, you'll find it all over Italy, and it's easy to get in the US. Usually in Puglia, orecchiette is paired with a bitter green, like a broccoli rabe or some chicory or something like that. But the shape of the pasta lends itself well to do it Sicilian style, which is how I'm going to do it today, with regular broccoli. It's really easy to make, super flavorful, so let's get into the ingredients. Let's start by going over the pasta itself. It has a couple of features that is why this sauce works. So on the one side, you see it's kind of ridged there, and the surface, when you feel it, is a little bit rough. On the other side, you've got this little pocket there, a dimple. So this shape is what's going to make this whole thing work. There's a science to why Italians eat the pasta shapes and types with the types of sauce that they eat, and this is a great example of why. So this sauce isn't really a sauce, it's more like a condiment. So the shape of this pasta now is going to help, like this little dimple is going to catch some of the bigger pieces of the broccoli, and then this rough surface here is going to help absorb some of the liquidy part of the sauce, and so it all kind of ties together. All right, broccoli. There's not really much to say about broccoli except just use the freshest broccoli you can get. Now, Italians cook their vegetables pretty much to death, so we're going to do the same thing. In this sauce, you really do want it cooked down to where it's as soft as it can get. You're going to actually maximize a lot of the flavors because of that. If you were making a side dish, it wouldn't matter so much. You could just keep it a little bit, I guess al dente you'd say, you know. But in this case, we really don't want that. We don't want any crunchy bits of the broccoli. Everything has to be very soft. And we're gonna, when we cook it like this anyway, where it's really, really cooked, we're gonna really concentrate the flavors. So it's gonna have like a lot more taste to it than if we only kind of cooked it most of the way through. So we're just gonna cut this into little pieces. We don't want to do whole florets here. We just, again, this is going to keep cooking down, so we want it in small pieces. It'll cook faster that way too. We're going to make what's called poor man's parmesan to put on this pasta. It's just breadcrumbs. We're not going to use any cheese. So in the place of cheese, grated cheese, we're actually going to sprinkle some toasted breadcrumbs over the top. Because it's peasant food, we're going to use stale bread. Instead of throwing this away, we're going to give it another life. It's not super hard, it's just, you know, a few days old. It still has a little bit of give to it. This one is a little bit older, and this crust is hard. We're gonna cut off this crust. We're gonna chop these into cubes, and we're gonna pulse them a few times in a food processor. We wanna get the texture kind of similar to like panko breadcrumbs, so it's not super fine. So that way you get a nice kind of crunchiness to it that you're not going to get out of fine breadcrumbs. So don't use the canned stuff. If you don't want to make this yourself, you can use fresh bread. It's better when it's stale, but you can use fresh or use panko, but try to not use that really fine breadcrumbs. You're not going to get the right texture out of that. To toast the breadcrumbs, we're going to start with a small saute pan with some olive oil. We'll put the breadcrumbs right in, get them evenly coated, and over a low heat, we'll just gently toast them. Toss it a little bit, give it a little stir once in a while, and once it starts kind of taking on some color, a nice golden brown, and you can kind of hear it making some noise in the pan, it's essentially done. Add a little salt and set it to the side. All right, in a pan over a low heat, we're going to get some olive oil kind of heated up, and then we're going to go right in with the raw broccoli. So notice I'm not boiling this first. I don't want to boil this, because if we boil it first, we're going to lose a lot of the flavor of that broccoli. So by doing this in the oil, we're going to concentrate all of those flavors. We're going to really intensify it, but we need it to be on a low heat. We might need some water in this at some point once it gets going, but we'll just keep checking on it. So I've got them in, I've got some oil. I think I need a little bit more. when you cook it like this, you kind of have to go heavy on the oil because those florets really absorb it and we don't want them to get burned. So add a little bit more oil. I'm going to add some salt because we want the liquid to start coming out of the broccoli. And we're going to cover it up and we're going to let that go for probably about 15 minutes. This has been going for about 5 minutes now and we can see it's starting to get some color. And I'm afraid it's going to cook a little too fast, so I'm going to add a little bit of water here and we'll steam it a little bit. So probably like a quarter cup of water, and then we cover it back up. So that will steam it and really soften it up and help it cook. This is what we're looking at here after almost 15 minutes. Look at how deep that green color is there. If we had boiled this first, it would be a pale kind of lime green. So you can tell that this is going to have a lot of flavor. We need to add some garlic to it now. And we do this at the end because we don't want to burn that garlic. It only needs like 30 seconds to cook really. So we just kind of get it mixed in there. We don't want it to burn. If it burns, then this whole thing turns bitter. Kind of mix it around. I'm going to shut the heat off now. And we're going to cover it back up and let it sit there while we make the pasta. And then I'm going to show you how to turn this sort of dry broccoli here into what's going to be a sauce. All right, this is a minute from being al dente here, so I want to take some of this pasta cooking liquid that's full of starch, and this is what's going to make that sauce. I'm going to take probably more than what I need, but I just want to make sure that I have enough. I'm going to drain the pasta and put it back into this pot so we can finish it up. So we've got the pasta back in the pot here. I'm going to add some of that liquid because we need to cook it for the remaining minute. So look on the box. It'll tell you how many minutes it needs to cook. This one was 12 minutes, so I took it out at 11. So now I've added the broccoli back there. And we've got some of that cooking liquid in there. Now you can already start to see that that doesn't look like just plain water there. It has a little bit of color, and it's going to continue to thicken and get creamy from that starch. I still have a little bit of that water, so I might need it, so I'm keeping an eye on this. Yeah, I need a little bit more. Just going to finish that. I'm going to shut the heat off because I don't want this to get too dry, and just let that kind of finish cooking in that liquid there. This is just about ready. I'm going to plate this up. Got the pasta plated, ready to go. So I'm going to put a little bit of the breadcrumb on top. Since everything's so soft here, the breadcrumb's going to give it a nice little crunch too, so a little added texture always is nice. Listen, do not boil your broccoli. This is like broccoli on steroids right now. It's so intense, it's got a ton of flavor. So when you do it like this, you're skipping a step too, which is nice, and you're just making the dish a lot better. Now, this is basically, this is vegan. It's a vegan dish. There's no meat or dairy or anything in this. You can skip the breadcrumbs and put a little bit of cheese in if you wanted, if you're not vegan. But the breadcrumbs really do add a lot. It does kind of give it that, not necessarily umami, but it gives it a nice flavor that you would get with the cheese. So everything really just comes together nicely when you kind of do it like this. Because remember, there's only 4 ingredients. We've only got broccoli, garlic, the pasta, and some breadcrumbs. That's it. So you really need to treat each ingredient as it needs to be cooked, so that way you get the most out of it. That's the key to this dish. It's the key to Italian food in general. Keep it very simple, just a few ingredients, treat each one the way it should be done, and you're gonna have a great dish every time. If you really wanna go deep into what Italian cuisine is all about, then make sure you stay tuned. See you in the next video.